I have Chief Yagami on the line.
L, I just got off the phone with the director of the FBI.
So how do you explain this? Are we now suspects in our own investigation?
I felt that it was necessary to uncover Kira's identity.
Everyone on YouTube talks about L, but so few truly understand his intellect. I'm going to bring up an instance that no one has ever spoken about, and I think, deep down, it was one of his smartest plays. He wouldn't have gotten to Kita without it. Before we begin, I'd like to say a huge thank you for the support you've been giving me. There's going to be a timestamp like this on the video somewhere that'll reveal the $25 Amazon gift card. All you have to do is pause at the timestamp given, analyze the screen, and flip the code backwards whenever you find it. Once you're done, redeem it and comment "I won." My next giveaway will be a little harder to find though, and it'll be through an actual mystery like promised. Moving on, I'm excited to give you this video. L did the impossible. When L inserted himself into the Kita investigation, he shared practically everything he knew with the Japanese police in return for cooperation. More so an act of trust thrown to them all for the purpose of confiding in the detective. L listened in on the latest and heard everyone voice their opinions. He even went as far as asking them to keep tabs and investigate the time of deaths from the killings, knowing he's in no place to make demands. When an officer found that the killings occurred between the hours of 1600 and 200, 4 p.m. and 2 a.m. for those who don't know military time, L made a quick remark saying that the findings are interesting, suggesting that the killer may be, in fact, a student. Unsure of the manga, both English and Japanese dub used the word idealistic sense of justice when describing the killer's motive. Knowing that beautiful set piece of information, L was too confident that Kita is a smarter individual, which is why he didn't use the words dumb, challenged, or incomplete, even though it would be deemed appropriate since for all we know it could be a middle schooler doing all these killings. Instead of using derogatory words for his profile of Kita, he then says that they might even be trying to become a god. L claims that they are dealing with an individual with a very childish concept of right and wrong. L didn't come to that conclusion because the killer's a student. L came to that conclusion because he did a self-profile on himself. I keep bringing it up, but no one knows L like how L knows L. Him being intrigued with the case wasn't only of interest but of certainty. He brought up the killings because he wants the police to chew on something as, again, an act of trust. Easing their minds, he still uses the humbleness of consideration to give the police more possibilities of narrowing it down without the advice of L. Before they end their meeting, L asked the police department to see the method the criminals' identities were being made public in Japan. He wanted to know if photos of the victims were also released. When Light finds out about L's discovery, he changes the timings of the killings. L quickly catches on and says that Kita is sending a message showing that he can determine the death at any given time. Ladies and gentlemen, think about this. The only way L knows this is because he's sure that Kita isn't a god. He's a human. Any detective in his shoes would believe that since Kita was killing it every hour, Kita didn't need to sleep. He knows there's something bigger going on than just an average serial killer, but he always considered that Kita was a smarter individual, like himself, and because of that, L has gotten results. He then shares with the police that it wasn't a coincidence that Kita changed his time of killing shortly after they found out he was a student. He verbally states that Kita has access to police information. L took it as a challenge, meanwhile Light is expecting L to be nervous. Light wanted L to be suspicious of the police so that they don't trust each other and the whole thing falls apart, and we all know the story from here. What you do not know is why did L keep the investigation of the police a secret from them. L questions what is Kita's real intentions doing all this, and then forms his PIs to do the investigation on the families of the police department. What if I were to tell you L won the upper hand by doing this? He ruled out who would be later useful to him with dark psychology. Let me explain. During their meeting, I mentioned that L gave the police a statement to consider every possibility. To the receiver, this shows that L wants to apprehend Kita's stat. That's the view of L now, the guy who wants to catch the killer. He threw information at them to obtain their trust and gain relatability when it came to his intentions. We see Light pull off this move in my first video, Kita's smartest statement. It truly is a smart play. However, it gets deeper. He made it known to the whole police force that Kita somehow had access to their information. L was also trying to rule out 3 things here. 1. To seem reasonable for privately investigating them without consent, which could also be to gain more information of his allies. 2. To find out who would consider that possibility and question among themselves. And 3. For the small chance that Kita is in that room, he'd fold under pressure and speak up to debunk his theory of having knowledge of the police force. If us, the viewer, keep seeing Death Note only as an entertaining series, we might miss the big idea of what the author's trying to tell us here. L may be more deceptive than Light. He played into Light's hands, but L benefited way more than Light there. L got more information by doing absolutely nothing. But this is where we strike absolute gold. When the police find out that L's been investigating them, He doesn't protest, but instead says the reasonable to get everyone who isn't committed out of the way. A kind, get the hell out of here, you're not worth my time from L. Now L is transparent and verbalizes the word trust and says he confides in the remaining few that stayed. When the six state that it's not fair for L to be remained anonymous and wish for him to join them in person, L responds stating that he thought about it already. Oh boy. L sensed the discourse coming from a mile away with his circumstances, but made the victory from Light's win. Okay, perhaps no one is understanding me when I tell you this, but I'm saying L knew the split was going to happen. He let the events unfold to grab a smaller chessboard. Now he can be with the people who passed his test and can get closer to Kira by letting him do all the work. One act, one statement, one thought would change this course. It was at this time I knew L wasn't all he said he was. There's way more to this character than I thought.